Welcome to the season premiere of Talking Scared. Season 2 is finally here, right? And we're finally, we're here. The Haunted Majestic in Huntington, West Virginia. We're about to take you inside this ship. Let you see some of the things that happened in the ship of death. And give you a little taste of what is now a pretty killer haunted attraction known as the Haunted Majestic. So won't you come on in, come on inside. Welcome, folks. Welcome to the Haunted Majestic. We are in Huntington, West Virginia right now, standing in front of a couple of barges. We got a friend popping out right behind us that's going to be taking us inside. And as we go through today, we're going to tell you a little bit more about the history of these barges, the history of this place itself. We're going to go over some of the paranormal stuff that hasn't been found here. And we're also going to talk about the haunt itself, because this is a haunted attraction that will be getting bigger and badder and better every single year, with more projects on the horizon. We got the Blennerhassett right there. That was a ship that serviced the Parkersburg area for a very long time that they have just brought back, honestly, from ship death, and are trying to bring it back and restore it and do some cool things with it as well. We'll obviously be talking about that one. But here we are, the Haunted Majestic. We told you we were going to bring you here, and we're going to find out some more about it inside.
Well, you are in the first barge, which this was the main hospital barge itself. There's two barges that are moored side by side.
You can kind of see it all the way back up in through there.
Yeah, I mean, it goes on, and then there's like bulkheads, and then you go through, and there's other rooms. Heating and air conditioning system. You can see there's like old barrels down in here. There's just
this is
all
so cool.
Of stuff that was left. Some of it's not that old. I mean, like the immediate previous owner probably left a lot of this in here.
Yeah.
And some of it is like, you can tell it's
really, yeah, absolutely. So, how old is this ship in and of itself? Or I think you said 107 years old?
This ship was built in January of 1912, so it's almost 108 years old.
Wow.
In January of 2020, it'll be 108 years old. And you can see right here, this is actually the original floor. It's all eaten away and rotted. And, that's iron that's over a century old. And then the new halls, it's been rehauled 3 different times. So the newer halls are underneath of these halls.
So when you were talking about that process a little bit, essentially, if I understood correctly, a hull goes bad, they need to replace it. Instead of replacing all of that, they just drop it about 6 inches and build a brand new.
Right, yeah, it was just so much easier to just do that, rather than to try to cut one out and weld a new one in. You just kind of put some I-beams along it, and then you just weld a new plate to the bottom of that and just build a whole new boat under the existing boat.
Very cool.
And it just, every time it would wear out, which is about every 30 to 40 years, you had to do
Put a new one on.
Yeah.
Put a new one on. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, while we're down here, and this is, so none of this down here, number one, any of the stuff that you're seeing is any of the actual Haunted Majestic stuff, per se.
No.
This is all stuff that they've just found down here.
Stuff that was just on the ship when we got it. And most of this down here has been untouched. We haven't really done anything with it here. We don't use this as part of our haunt.
It would be a very creepy place to throw somebody, though, for sure.
Get in the hole.
Yeah, and this is all from back in the days when this was a wartime hospital vessel and everything else. Nothing down here has been unchanged. It's genuinely a little blast down the pass for sure.
Yeah, and you got some cutouts in the bulkhead, so you can just go on to the next section, and it just goes on and on like this. There's different holes that you can kind of look in at different areas.
So right up in here, you might be able to see it through that crack right there. You got different sewage treatment areas that he was talking about. And just the age and everything with this. There's some spray paint over here. It says Tank 1995. Any ideas what that may have...
No idea.
Maybe a guy named Tank was down here.
Or maybe a guy named Tank was smoking pot down here.
In 1995 and decided to mark himself.
Right.
So while we're down here, kind of in definitely the creepier part of the ship, let's talk about a little bit of the history. So it initially, I think its first run of bad luck is it stirs up an Indian burial ground, correct?
Yeah, it was built in 1912, and during that time, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers was doing what's called the canalization of the Ohio River. In other words, there was a federal act that said that they had to make the river deep enough for towboats to push barges so that they didn't run aground.
Okay.
So a big job at that point was dredging out all the mud and sand and rock from the river's bottom to make it deeper. And these barges were originally what was called sand dredge barges. They were open top, just like big barges that you see on the rivers today. And a crane would be hooked to a barge beside it, and it would just scoop up the muck and put it in these barges. Well, the rumor has it is that these things, obviously the river, when they built new locks and dams, the river got deeper and wider than what it had previously been.
Okay.
So areas that were once land, which were then covered by water, they started dredging all this, and they were dredging up cemeteries and Indian villages and just lots of stuff. That these barges kind of, at that point, became like the haunted barges. You know,
Yeah, they had a really bad, they didn't want them, this was like the last resort
Yeah,
barge.
they kind of tied them up, and these two barges were kind of like, well, we'll use them if we have to, but they really creep us out, so we don't want to use them.
Yeah.
So they kind of just laid dormant for most of their early days.
Okay.
And then when World War II came along, they were commandeered by lease by the Navy.
Okay.
Basically, the Navy just came to these different boat. You know, they commandeered all kinds of ships and boats and fishing vessels,
Especially
and
too that are just sitting over to the side, probably
right.
tied
And they
up.
basically said, "Hey, we're leasing these. Here's a contract. You're getting X amount per year. We'll bring them back when we're done."
Okay.
And actually, they kept them from like 1942 all the way up to like 1978, I think it was.
Wow.
So
And they saw a lot during that time too.
3 wars. You know, these barges served in World War II in the English Channel between France and England.
Yeah.
At the Normandy D-Day invasion.
That's when they were kind of shoved together and made into a wartime hospital.
Yep. And these barges were built to where you could just link them together, like side by side.
Okay.
And there was walkways in between them that we'll see in a little bit.
Okay.
But you could they're segmented. So you could just push like 10 barges together, and you had walkways in between them, and you could make a big hospital.
Wow.
So
Okay.
that's when they first started seeing action, and then they went to Korea and they went to Vietnam and served in the waters there. And then in the 70s, when we got to the point where we weren't having world wars anymore, the Navy just kind of wrote them off and said, "Hey, come and get your boats. We're done with them." These particular barges, there was 19 sets of these barges that the Navy either leased or built. And these were called, from what we understand or what we've been told, the ship of death. It's just the casualty rate of the surgical units here were so much higher than the other ones. It was like they could kind of see the obvious charting and say, "Hey, they're bad luck ships."
Yeah, no, absolutely.
And
absolutely.
we don't know why that was. If it was just maybe the more injured soldiers were brought to this, we don't know, because a lot of those wartime records aren't available.
Yeah,
but
and no telling how accurate they are
Right.
and aren't either.
Yeah, but what we could find, these were kind of like the ships that you didn't want to come to.
Yeah, no, absolutely, absolutely. It's very, very cool. And like I said, we are literally in the belly of the beast.
You are 4 foot underwater right now.
4 foot underwater, and that's encouraging because there's a lot of holes in this ship. But we've went over the history about it a little bit, and taking you down inside, it's a different feeling. You've had the ship in your possession for a little while now. Have you had any moments or times when you've been alone that kind of felt uneasy, or do you feel like maybe there's still some people hanging around that haven't quite left?
2 maintenance guys that work on this property full time, and part of their job is to tend for these boats or these ships to make sure they don't get away or that they're not taking on water or anything like that. One of the guys in particular has, said, "Man, there's been lots of times I've been in a certain room and there's been someone talking." And he'll go, "I'll go to my buddy who's the only other person on the property and go, 'Hey, are you on the boat?' And he's like, 'No, I'm not on the boat.'" So, and he's like really freaked out about it. And,
yeah, well, I mean, that's understandable. I mean, even down here, you guys know me. I don't get into paranormal. I'm the first guy that tries to find every scientific reason to explain why not.
Right.
And it's a different feeling down here. It really is. It's just a little heavier. Maybe that's just because we're 4 feet underwater. Maybe that's because there's still some people hanging out that haven't quite left the Haunted Majestic yet. But we're going to explore a little bit more, and we'll be bringing you some more stuff here real shortly. Very cool. All right. So number one, welcome again here on the Haunted Majestic. An absolutely beautiful scene, mixed with a little taste of horror. So we have the Ohio River, and who knew the Haunted Majestic came equipped with power windows? But it does. It does luxury vessel.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So they are in gut mode a little bit as far as the haunt itself goes, but this does give you a little taste of what's inside here. Mortuary scene?
This was a mortuary or a funeral type scene, and we had, a priest and nuns and
Very cool.
different monsters that were hidden throughout and behind the curtain and such. So people would actually come through, and we had funeral music, and they'd go to view the deceased, and we'd have like a monster that would actually come up out of the casket.
That is so awesome. That is so awesome. We're not going to show you their tricks, but it's really, really awesome.
Things like that. So I mean, it
Very cool. Now you said you had a courtroom scene up front as well. Talk a little bit about kind of what the theme was this year. Did it really have a theme, or was it kind of?
It really didn't have a theme. This year we were so pressed for time.
Just kind of setting up scene development here.
We kind of started with the idea of the history of the ship. And,
Okay.
And we went through a lot of different scenes that you would see while serving in the military, like a court-martial hearing, a funeral of a deceased that was killed in battle. We had a lot of surgical units actually where the surgery took place on the ship. We reenacted some surgeries out there.
That is so cool. That is so cool. Surgeries with tragic endings, I'm assuming?
Yeah, definitely. And there's 4 different morgues on the vessel, cooler rooms where they kept the bodies. So we kind of had, played with that. So.
Very cool. Very cool.
But next year we'll definitely have the time and the thought to kind of tie it all together.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, what you did, and this is just the gutted down version of it. But just what you were able to put together in 6 weeks, it puts so much excitement for what the future is going to hold here.
We were hustling to try to even get it together.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing, and I know that you said that your haunted attractions are kind of so-so as far as how you feel about them, but putting the right people in place and having a guy like Tony, right, that Dyke takes care of this for you. Clearly, Tony has that passion and that drive to see it done right, and that's what we love seeing more than anything else.
He's definitely into it. He goes to all the different shows and goes to all the different haunts. And how many haunted houses have actually a boat that travels by and waves at you while you're...
Yeah! Check that out. How many haunted... I can think of one other haunted attraction that we've been to that was on a boat, and that's it, man. This is such a rare thing and such a beautiful idea. Very, very cool. So this is just a small taste of it. I think I'm going to try and talk him into getting us up into some of those morgue rooms and seeing some of that stuff here in just a minute. So we'll be back with you shortly. I promise. More to come. All right, so we're continuing through this ship here and looking at different things. Now, obviously, not every single thing that you're going to see is originally from the hospital, but a few things are. Over here, there is an examination table that is from the original hospital. And as well, you were pointing out the coolers where they kept stored samples.
The wheelchairs were in a closet. We found a bunch of, and you can tell those are like 1930s, 40s, they're old. They're not like what you'd see today.
Yeah.
The walker is new, but some of this stuff, like these old blood pressure things, some old like surgical powders that you would put on burns and things like that.
That is insane.
An old doctor's kit.
Oh, that is very cool.
Which you can tell, doctors obviously don't carry those these days.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely.
But, there's some stuff that was here. All the stainless steel walls and exhausts and shelving and all that stuff was native to the vessel.
And this was one of the primary surgical
We think so.
areas of the ship
We
back in
think
its
so.
heyday.
From what we found, this whole side of the ship was the hospital portion.
Very cool.
The other side of the ship was the recovery portion.
Okay. So if you disobey any of the haunt rules real quick while you're here, you end up down there.
Yeah.
So while you're down there, while you're here, you got to be polite guests, or they'll throw you down there. We've already been down there, and they threatened to keep us down there because Trish wasn't behaving. But they let us out for now.
And then straight ahead of you here is the cooler areas where actually that's where the morgue was. Through this door, there's actually the door taken off, but it said morgue on it.
Okay.
And this is the cooler rooms in here. And I think there's maybe 3 or 4 different coolers back in here.
Now, you guys know how I am. I don't play games with this stuff. I'm barely a maybe a minuscule believer. It's a little different feeling back here.
It is.
This is something else. I mean, is this part back here? Is this part of the haunt at all?
No,
Wow.
This was not part of the haunt. This wasn't. We didn't get it developed or, fixed up to where it was a good flow that we could use.
You don't need to. Just put people back here for a minute.
Yeah.
I think that's probably enough. Now, before anybody comments on the beef and chicken and all that other stuff that you might be seeing on the wall, this was a restaurant at one point in time as well. I'm not sure how I feel about the morgue being the walk-in cooler for the restaurant, but
You know, you got a point.
clearly, using what we got.
Yeah, this was a restaurant back in the 1980s after
Yep.
the military got done with the ship and gave it back to Majestic Steamship Company. At that point, it was out of business, and the heirs just sold it to a restaurant in Covington, Kentucky area, and it served there as a restaurant for a few years.
And you have to wonder if, or maybe if the restaurant really truly knew the history of the ship they were buying, and
I don't think they did. I
fully
think,
understood what they were really doing.
and we're still developing the history of it. We really haven't, because it's so hard to piece together records that are.
Yeah.
And these vessels were renamed in the 1940s, so
Which
we
makes it
could
even
pretty
easier.
much track back to there. But then we had to figure out that other vessel. We don't even know what its original name was. This one was called the Davy Crockett originally.
Okay.
And then in 1940s, when the Navy leased it, they gave all their vessels names of commanders or people that served in the military. So this one was named the Douglas Lee after that.
Now, isn't there an interesting story with the names of the two barges and the current owners
It
of the
is.
barges?
Actually, Douglas Lee is my dad.
Okay.
He's been dead for many years. He never knew that this even existed.
Wow.
And he worked his entire life in the Navy and then on the maritime rivers doing that kind of work. And we never had any knowledge of this whatsoever.
Wow.
And what is really cool, and we don't know that it is exactly the same person, but my wife's father, who died when she was 8 years old, his name was Eugene Morris, his first and middle name. That vessel was named Eugene Morris.
Yep.
Now, we don't know if it's the same guy or if it was a first name, last name,
It's
or
too
her
fun
father.
to assume that it is.
Right, her father was first name, middle name, as well as my dad is first name, middle name. So we don't know. Normally ships are named first name, last name,
Yeah.
like Edmund Fitzgerald.
Okay.
So we're thinking maybe the Douglas Lee and the Eugene Morris was two completely different guys. But it's pretty cool to think, hey, the married couple that owns these, their dads were named those names.
Yeah, that is awesome.
So,
Whether that's even the 100% story or not, it's
Right.
still cool.
It's still like-
just how it all lines up.
Yeah.
But I think it's time to get out of the dead people cooler. What y'all think?
Yeah,
Y'all done with the dead
heavy in
people
here.
cooler?
this room, which was kind of unique, we found some documentation. They referred to a room on the second floor that was known as the butcher's bin. And this was like an amputation, from what we gathered, an amputation suite, to where this is where soldiers would come and actually, if you had to lose an arm or a leg. And in World War II and the Korean War, this was kind of prior to the MASH hospital type setting, where you had the paramedics and all that kind of stuff that we do today.
Yeah.
So back in those days, it was kind of like, if your arm or leg is badly mutilated, they just take off your arm or your leg and you save the person. So this was, from what we gathered, one of those suites originally where some of those amputations occurred.
I think sweet is a generous name for it.
Yeah. But I mean, you can see like the old, obviously that's like, a hospital type thing. You know?
Yeah.
And you got the foot pedals, which, you know, as you do surgery, you don't want to touch, you know, with your hands.
Yep.
So it all fits. You know?
There's even a hand back behind there.
Yeah.
So clearly, very, very cool. Very cool. All right. So now that we have, we've taken you through the surgical areas, we've taken you literally into the heart and soul of this ship, the bowels, the underwater portion, the part that supposedly keeps this ship afloat. It's what we're hoping for, at least. Now we're going to go on to maybe a little bit of a happier side of the ship. This is more of a recovery unit. And again, as we've talked about a little bit, they would literally piece these things together, shove these ships together, make these connections, and set up these massive complexes where they could do this and set up different staging areas. So we just got out of the bad side, the side where either you are fixed and you get to come over here, or you end up in the walk-in cooler. One of the two options that appears to be the exit strategy for this place. But if you make it over here, life can start to hopefully improve for you a little bit. Now there is a ballroom area that we're going to take you up into, little remnants of restaurants, stuff like that. This was the recovery portion. Hopefully a little bit of a happier vibe over here, but yeah, who knows? Recovery sometimes isn't as recovering as you would like it to be. But we're going to take you through, show you the other side of this place.
Like I said, they just took these and just slapped them side by side by side, and they would make them, you know, 300 feet wide if they needed to, and just have these little corridors that would connect. And normally the hospital ships, each barge would have like that one you're coming out of was like the surgical unit. It was all like surgery rooms and hospital rooms. Okay. And then this was what was called a recovery barge. This was one of the rooms originally that was, you know, a social area.
Okay.
And this was like a gathering room. You know,
This is beautiful.
They had entertainment here.
Very cool.
You know, they would have like comedians come in, kind of like the USO type things. You know.
Okay.
You know, Lucille Ball would go over and sing and dance and whatever, and the soldiers would come in here, just like you see today. That
Yeah, absolutely.
The Army and Navy does.
Even on a ship called the Ship of Death, there were times that, you know, hope. I mean, you recovery, and here we are entertaining, and as Dana was talking about, we comedians and singers and all types of stuff to try to get these people's minds off of where they actually were and what was actually going on. So this wasn't like this was some crazed doctor, insane asylum, psychopath type of thing, but this was a very sad place, and there was a lot of death that did happen here, but they were trying their very best to make things right and to get these soldiers healed up and ready to go back home. And part of that process is obviously recovery, and obviously at times getting your drink on at the bar and being able to experience some different stuff and see some different stuff. And it's crazy, the feelings of the ship. You know, as we were in the morgue area, it was very heavy here. It's light feeling. It's almost joyous and kind of happy. I'm sure it's not like that when the Haunt's in full tilt, but for now, it's a little lighter over here. Feels a little better. I don't know. I'm enjoying this spot a little bit more. But again, the ballroom area, the bar area, a little bit of happiness on the Ship of Death. We are here with Tony. He has been kind enough, after a busy day of work, to come and hang out with us for a few minutes, talk to us a little bit about the haunt, about the future of the haunt a little bit, and what you can expect if you decide to spend your evening on one of these two haunted ships. So Tony, thank you, number one, so much for taking the time out of your busy schedule, hang out with us for a little bit. Number one, if you could describe in just a few words what it's like to put a haunted attraction together in 6 weeks, what would those few words be?
It was pretty hectic at first, but we all pulled together and was able to pull it off. I think anybody in the haunt industry, if you were to tell them that you want to design something this big in 6 weeks, they'd tell you it would be impossible.
Yeah, absolutely.
But, because usually most of your big haunted houses, they're anywhere from 6 months to a year into working into it before they get started.
Every bit of it.
But yeah, I mean, we were able to pull it off, and the day before we opened, we were all really impressed with how far we'd come along in the 6 weeks. But
we've been impressed with what it looks like just in gut out mode.
Yeah.
Just seeing some of the different rooms and some of the different areas that have been set up, man, it's very, very impressive. How long have you been in the haunted attraction world, or is this really your first kind of go at it?
Well, this is my first professional haunted house. I've been involved with doing some haunted houses for fundraising.
Okay.
And I was in a volunteer fire department years ago.
Okay.
And we did a haunted house at our local fire station for a fundraiser.
Okay.
Also, I've done it for our youth group at church. We did it back when I was probably a teenager. But actually, I've been a big Halloween enthusiast for a long, long time. I mean, it stems back from when I was a kid, but I've actually been doing these big Halloween costume parties for my son for the past 8 years.
Okay,
and
very cool.
I build my own props and
that's awesome.
And all that, and it gets bigger and bigger every year. I rent out like our fire academy.
Okay.
It's a pretty big facility, and after 8 years of being there, I'm to the point I've just about outgrown it.
Okay. All right.
But that's what got me into making props and all that kind of stuff.
So talk a little bit about this year. Again, we throw a haunt together in 6 weeks. We have some really cool stuff going on. What was maybe your favorite scene, your favorite part?
I would probably say that the funeral parlor was probably one of my favorites.
We enjoyed the funeral parlor as well.
I thought it had a really good look.
Yes.
About it, and it had a pretty good jump scare.
Okay. He showed us. He showed us
two jump scares,
like
when they would go to the corpse that's in the coffin.
Yep.
It would pop up from the other end, and
which is evil.
We had the nun come out of the other side.
Okay. All right. So and we were talking to Dana a little bit about the future of the haunt and kind of where you're looking at taking this place. So this ship has a pretty gnarly history in and of itself.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't need anything really added to it as far as the story, and that's kind of what you are looking at for the future, right? Just telling the ship's story.
Yeah, we were a little bit sporadic this past season in our scenes.
Absolutely, 6 weeks.
It really wasn't geared toward the boat theme. So the next season, we're going to be more geared toward the specific story of the Haunted Majestic.
Very cool.
But yeah, we're really excited about it. We're kind of in tear down mode and everybody's kind of taking a break, but we're also really excited to get back into it.
Okay.
We're going to start our haunt meetings in January.
Okay.
But I've already been developing a lot of ideas and have already started making a few little prototypes on the look I'm looking for with the actors and such.
Very cool. Very cool. All right. Now, there is one question we ask just about every single person that ever makes any type of appearance on Talking Scared. And, I mean, that's where you are right now. Favorite horror movie? Go.
The Exorcist.
The Exorcist, the original?
Yes.
Very cool. I like that answer. That is a good answer. It's a good answer.
Yeah.
Tony, thank you so much, man. We
you.
are definitely going to be coming down next year. They got the right guy doing the right thing here for sure.
Well, thank you.
And we look forward to see what you put together next year. And that's it, folks. This is the Haunted Majestic. I think we have showed you just about every possible spot that we can so far. All right? So we're going to cut it out. We're going to let Tony get back to his life, Dan get back to their life, and we're going to get the hell off their ship before they throw us back down into the bow of this thing. See y'all later.